Oh, should we probably do the opposite of FOMO, which I'm going to call the fear of losing it all. Folia? I think that acronym sounds like butt, doesn't it? But hey, whatever, so does FOMO. Hey, it's Zempuck here. So today's question and/or topic, I think I actually saw on one of those fire groups that I'm in. Could have been Facebook, could have been Reddit, who knows. But it is a good one because it is so simple. It just poses, hey, if you've already reached FI or may or may not have retired, personal choice obviously, but do you still fear losing it all, right? I think the original poster qualified it by saying, in this case, you've got at least $1 million in your nest egg, right? And I thought, hey, this is a question I am perfectly qualified to answer since I am in that exact same boat, right? Let's be honest, no one who knows me in real life has ever called me a super chill, go with the flow kind of dude, right? So yeah, I definitely have some level of OCD. So even with that said, how do I deal with this very natural urge of fear of losing it all? OMG, what if I have to go back to the workforce? The horror. It just so happens this is also a topic I've been stewing on for the entire 5 years of my early retirement so far, and especially true since I spend most of that time trying to convince my wifey joining me on exiting the workforce. Now she, like me, is also a super trooper at heart, so we must have gotten this hurdle over somehow, right? So today I'll just fireside chat about this simple premise and how I counter it with the power of logic. Anyway, if you're intrigued by what I might say, please subscribe, like, comment, share, all that social media buzzwords, or whatever you want, right? Because I am rich enough for me, and I'll be great regardless. So first of all, I think people who can achieve or even aspire to fire are all, in a lot of parts, planners, right? I mean the opposite to the kind of people who just want to YOLO through life, right? Those people will never have the discipline to get to financial independence ahead of the general population, okay? Any money they come into will be blown through. That's just the reality of that personality type. I'm not knocking it, but it is very different from the fire mindset, right? I'd say people who like fire are actually on the other side of the spectrum, maybe too cautious, a little too caught up in our paranoia, and that's the root of the problem that the original poster asked. I mean, if you had $1 million, do we fear the loss of it? Well, that bar of $1 million is arbitrary. It could be 2 or 5 or 10. It doesn't really matter. Any amount of money that you have earned can be lost, right? The question of whether we should fear it should come down to, is that scenario likely? And in my opinion, if your nest egg is over 7 figures, that is actually pretty unlikely. It might even be extremely unlikely so long as the person with the wealth is well diversified in their retirement and can withstand short-term shocks. By that I just mean, like, if you're worth over $1 million, but it's $1 million in cryptos or NFTs, the chances of loss is much higher than if you had $1 million in well-diversified stock portfolios and some real estate and some cash, right? This is especially true for the financially disciplined, right? I mean, unless some giant financial shock happens instantly, like even if the economy falls into a depression, people will tend to adjust with the worst of times just because, just similar to how they can adjust with the best of times, right? Now, what can we do to mitigate that risk? Well, I think this one is also easy. Let's say you did fire with just $1 million or $2 million, right? And you start seeing a 20 to 50% drop year over year. I mean, that would be incredibly unpleasant, obviously, right? Sequence of risk is an absolute killer at the beginning of anyone's retirement. But remember, we are talking about early retirement here, right? Not retirement at the senior level, where there are possibly more significant physical limitations, right, to going back to work. We fire people, leave the job because we could, not because we have to. So in this hypothetical scenario, if your net worth is dropping to a level that you're nervous about, I mean, what would it be a reasonable thing to do? You cut spending where you can and maybe just get a simple job and write it out as if you're on Coast Fire or Barista Fire rather than actual fire, right? Basically, it just means that you've dropped down a level of security. But guess what? If new millionaires are feeling the heat, you better believe that most of society is feeling it way, way more. So anyone who has gotten to millionaire status by themselves once is still in a much better position than the rest of society, okay? After all, if you did make your own money, to get to this enviable state of investment and savings, you could do it again. Why would you doubt yourself, right? A type of brain power involved to get to fire, that just does not disappear overnight, okay? Or even after a few years. And now finally, I admit it. On my personal perspective, there's always anxiety, obviously. I went from making almost close to 7 figures a year to not having a paycheck at all coming in. Does that feel weird? It feels, a bit weird to anxiety, stomach, inducing anxiety level, right? I have felt anywhere in that spectrum, especially in year 1. But that anxiety is best countered by, well, time, okay, the experience of it. No one's experience can really counter my own, right? Because I'm now 5 years in, and I can honestly say it is much easier to pay for stuff now than in year 1, because I have been consistently beating at least inflation, right? So my assets are not being drawn down at all, right? And I'm really not just beating inflation, but still growing my net worth, all while not having to answer to an employer, okay? So by this trend of 5 years now, why would I lose it all? The opposite is what history is showing me so far, right? Which is that my nest egg will continue, could and should grow. And that is literally what people mean, by the way, when they say let money work for you, right? My money has been working for me because I had a big enough nest egg. So it's doing its work tirelessly and doing a hard enough job to replace my job that I was doing. That is how I pitched it to my wifey, by the way. All I have to say is, babe, you've seen me hang out and do nothing but play video games and pickleball for 5 years, okay? And I'm still able to, pay the vast majority of our combined living expenses, right? I could do that while she squirrels away a bit more of her income, active income in the last few years. So why would it be any different after she quits, right? So in conclusion, I do think a little bit of fear is a good thing, right? I still pay attention to, every expense that I put out, right? And apparently, according to some people on the internet, if I still care about what I spend, then I'm not really rich. I don't agree with that sentiment, right? I think I'm rich because I only want to splurge on things that really matter to me and brings me real joy. I won't waste it on things people do purely out of tradition, such as Christmas presents or movie theater popcorn. Ugh, that last one. There's no way I'm paying $10 for what I think tastes like chewing paper, okay? Fight me on that one if you want. Anyway, I'm also not saying I know it all. After all, this is actually 2024. This is actually the first year of full fire for wifey and I both as a household. So maybe I'll change my tune in a year or two. I mean, it's possible, but unlikely. But that's life, isn't it? We shall see. So let me know your thoughts below. Cheers, I'll approach it.